Impact is being discussed and debated by executives and leaders at every level, from boardrooms at businesses big and small to inner chambers of government, as well as within local, national, and international institutions. What are some of the major trends that you have noticed, and has the pandemic changed any of them?
If somebody tells you they can predict the future, I think they're lying, right? So nobody can. I think we're always catching up, and that's what I want to say first.
To what Nisha was saying, nobody can ever predict the future. The best thing that we can do is to co-create it. And remember what Henry Ford had famously once said, that any business that is only in the business of making money is a poor business.
So anytime there is a transition, obviously we're going to continue to play catch up, and that catch up is what I call the future of work. That is the other thing that the pandemic has brought to me. It has highlighted a huge gap in inclusion of digitization.
I particularly like the point about leadership and how the pandemic has inspired everyone who can fill the gap to be leaders.
Digitally mediated work itself across sort of employment categories is also increasing. And of course, all of this is sort of underpinned, or, you can't take away the context of how the economy is doing, how generally there's a greater thrust towards digitization, and how there's a need to generate vast amounts of employment for our population. So I feel like, there are all of these trends that are happening, underlined by the idea of digital, underlined by the idea of the economy, underlined by sort of themes of shrinking jobs, but a range of growing opportunities in different domains.
How do you think the pandemic has affected entrepreneurship?
Through our work at Headlife, we've seen phenomenal talent that exists, but it's just lack of opportunities and lack of capabilities that have relegated them to where they are. So how can we start recognizing the talent of youth that resides in our villages, and can we start unleashing that potential? Third, to your point on entrepreneurship, in all my travels around, I completely believe that there is far more entrepreneurial resilience in rural India, given the adversity that they face, than the pampered lot of the tech entrepreneurs in the metros, right? So how do we leverage that entrepreneurial energy and resilience? Super excited about the emerging technologies, be it IoT, drones, 3D printing, VR, AR. I think these have phenomenal opportunities to reimagine rural. So in our work, we are trying to say, listen, if you were to take aspirations, talent, technology, and entrepreneurial energy, you can create a new Ruben or a new rural, which we call as Ruben and Rubenomics. And how do we then co-create that future together is the question.
Do you think navigating the future requires a change in mindset? And if it does, what do you think those mindsets should be? What do you think that we need to reinvent and rethink about?
We have been given this opportunity to refocus on the human being, right? We've sort of, in our race in the last decade or even more, we've sort of forgotten. Yes, as individuals, we do work a lot with AI, but it's always with the lens of the human in the middle of it, right? So for us, AI is always about the human in the loop. And as we have raced over the years, we've sort of forgotten that this whole piece of the world is, in the position it is today is because of the human at the center of it. And I feel that the future is really about refocusing back on the human being in the center of existence, right?
But Nisha, can you talk a little bit about what skills, jobs, and most importantly, what organizations could be the most valuable moving forward, given all that we've heard, and of course your own research and understanding of the space?
Anywhere where you can use your human skills. And the other thing that is coming up from my research is super specialization, right? You have to be really good at one or two things to ensure that only you can do that and nobody else.
What are some of the practical ways organizations can ensure they're able to integrate impact into their business operations? If you could draw on some of the examples from Head Held High and OneBridge, of course, how do organizations really engage and ensure that this is integrated?
The moment you start with what you care about deeply, right? For example, I care deeply about youth and their pathways as socioeconomic opportunities, right? What opportunities and journeys do they do? And you start with the purpose, you start with your passion and create a purpose which is manifested in the world around you. And you embed that purpose into the program, and the program is a company, is a non-profit, is a Section 8, whatever, right? and then you pursue that program in all your might to make it successful. A lot of us, when we start designing organizations, we sometimes forget the passion or the purpose and start with the program. Oh, what do you want to do? I want to do a startup doing whatever, blockchain, right? And then when we go out on that path on the progress and profitability and all that, because it's not connected to the passion and the purpose in the first place, at a later point of time, we are very hard. It's very hard to reconcile both.
We've been given an opportunity, right, to reset a lot of ways and processes in which we operate. When you look at how there has been an increased acceptance of remote working, right, and people and companies increasing adoption of digital and AI, because without that, you mostly can't exist anymore, ironically. And thankfully, what this has done is it suddenly opened up the fact that there is this huge pool of untapped talent. All this while the focus has been, because of infrastructure reasons largely, has been on cities and larger towns where access, connectivity has facilitated progress. And unfortunately, because of the lack of development in infrastructure and connectivity, this hasn't percolated down to the smaller towns, but we've focused on education and we've got this amazing talent pool of people and skills. There is modern day requirements already being learned in these smaller places, but this talent pool would have had to come to cities to get jobs. And we're hoping that because of what has happened today, this untapped talent pool suddenly is now available to be accessed by a lot of the corporates who need to access them.
The technology that could make manual labor redundant is heavily reliant on manual labor to make it smarter. And data labeling and classification services, which are essential to AI, rely on intensive manual efforts. Could you speak a little bit to the challenges in this industry and the possibilities for innovation that promote dignity without sacrificing the bottom line? Also, is that a trade-off that companies should even address?
AI itself, the needs for AI data labeling have evolved, requiring much more investment in larger workforces versus temporarily crowdsourced sort of work. The business models within the industry have also shifted. So I feel like thinking about impact from a range of lenses, the secondary order economic effects in the place where the employment is generated, what that means in an intergenerational sense, what that means for female participation in the workforce if women don't have to migrate out of their hometowns, which is a big social concern. Parents still hesitate to send young women out to work away from their hometowns. So being able to think about impact not just from a narrow lens, but from a very wide lens that accounts from a range of second order, third order effects, intergenerational effects, rural economies, longer term sort of debt and welfare and those kinds of questions.
What role do you think rural India will play in this current context in how the future of work sort of unfolds?
70% of our population or so residing still in the rural hinterlands, and more than about 300 million living in villages which are very small. And 300 million is like the size of the United States, or give or take a few million here or there. So when I think of inclusion, I think we are the ones who needed to be included in their growth journeys and not the other way around, right? Because they are the majority out there. So the point is that how do we build those bridges between urban and rural India? How do we build those seamless bridges? And how do we truly, again, to use an oft-quoted word here, co-create solutions there? So how can we create more opportunities? And I think, as Amartya Sen beautifully said, the poverty is nothing but capability deprivation and opportunity deprivation. So can we create capabilities, opportunities, and capabilities that go hand in hand and provide a range of choices? People will figure out what to do with those choices by themselves, right? And I think that's the task on hand. So therefore, how do you do more distributed model of development rather than central or still a very metrocentric models? I think those are questions that we need to ask ourselves as we go ahead.